One of the Democrats who spoke out overnight on the House floor was Congressman Brendan Boyle of Pennsylvania. He's the ranking member of the Budget Committee. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
The decision we have been entrusted by the American people to make will have ramifications for millions of our fellow Americans, and indeed for our country for decades to come. There may not be a lot of people able to watch at 4:05 in the morning, but in just a few short hours, some of them on Medicaid will be waking up and turning on the news to find out if what we did here tonight means they're about to lose it. The kids who rely on SNAP, the Nutrition Assistance Program, they may not quite understand it, but make no mistake about it, what we are about to do in the next few minutes here will have a profound effect on their lives.
And Congressman Boyle joins us now. Congressman, appreciate you stepping out of the chamber for a moment during Leader Jeffries' speech. I guess you figure you have some time still to come talk to us before that wraps up and the vote commences. We heard your case against, part of it anyway, this massive bill. We were just talking to Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky, who was passing on what he feels like are going to be the devastating impacts of this legislation on the ground in his state. What else do you expect to see, let's say, in your district, bring it down to the ground level of your constituents, if and when this bill does pass?
Well, good to be with you. You know, I've been up all throughout the night, so have my fellow Democrats, and we've been doing everything we possibly can to stop this bill because the ramifications are truly awful for people in my district, but throughout this country. CBO confirmed that 17 million Americans will lose their health care if this bill in just a few moments passes and becomes law. That would represent the biggest loss of health care in American history. There are other ramifications, as I was pointing out in my speech on the floor, through the middle of the night. Another 4.5 million kids would lose SNAP. That is vital. I mean, my wife happens to be an elementary school teacher in a school that has a very high population of students that rely on that program. We will have hungrier kids going to school in America if this bill becomes law. And we think of all of these cuts to Medicaid, to Medicare, the ACA, to food assistance, and toward what end? To pay for tax cuts, more than $5 trillion worth of tax cuts that mostly go to the top 1%. It's truly an immoral piece of legislation.
When you talk privately, Congressman, you got a bunch of friends in the Hill who are Republicans, presumably. When you speak to them privately, they know what this bill is going to do to the deficit. They know what it's going to do to rural hospitals in some of their states or urban hospitals, depending on what kind of district they represent. What do they tell you behind the scenes about how they get to yes on that?
You know, it is amazing. I really wish that what some Republicans say in private could become public, because it's always, you know, in whispered, hushed tones, I don't agree with Donald Trump. I don't think this is good legislation. I'm concerned about deficit and debt. But then they always look around and say, shh, don't tell anyone that I said that. The reality is, so many of my Republican colleagues are deathly afraid of Donald Trump. Just yesterday, or I'm losing track of what day it is now, but maybe about 36 hours ago, there was a markup in the Rules Committee, and you had a couple of self-described fiscal hawks on the Republican side vote against this legislation because of its massive increase in the deficit and debt. Well, now here they are about to vote for the bill, even though not one word of the bill has changed. They call it the Freedom Caucus, the HFC. Really, I think it stands for the House Folding Caucus.
I think, Congressman, it is stunning to see some of those more fiscally conservative members fold and actually vote for this, having covered them for so long myself. You, of course, are one of their colleagues. I also thought it was a bit odd to hear that, you know, moderates in the House hoped that the Senate would make some moderating changes. They made this bill more conservative. And then, of course, you had senators hoping that moderates in the House could make this more moderate. And ultimately, the bill didn't change. And here we are. The thing that I end up hearing so much when we talk to stakeholders and advocates, I talked, for example, to 2 kids and who are also podcast hosts with Down syndrome about how this would impact their care. And the words that they kept using for me is, I'm so scared. I'm scared of the uncertainty. I'm scared of what this means when I lose the care that I rely on. When we talk about how this impact knows no politics and no party, what do you tell constituents who hear what you're saying about, all right, we're going to make this an issue in the midterm, but they're scared now and they're going to be hurt now?
Yeah, and you know, I really, I'm so glad you brought up this point, because the number of calls that we're getting to our office, the number of text messages I'm getting from just personal friends saying, you know, my mother's in a nursing home and she's on Medicaid, and now I'm truly scared of what's going to happen. There are some 500 nursing homes that are saying they're at risk to close in the United States if this bill becomes law. There's another 300 or so rural hospitals that are at risk. The reality is the face of those, specifically on Medicaid, is not just an urban one. It is urban, rural, it is inner ring suburb, it is young, and it is old. It's white, black, Latino, Asian American. It's truly a wide swath of Americana.
And I think the other challenge here, too, as much as this bill is likely passing today and the midterms we know are over a year and a half away at this point, sustaining people's mindset and consciousness around this issue is going to be important and potentially difficult. But then also, how do you do that when a lot of these cuts might not actually take effect until 2026, 2027, points where people might have already gone to the ballot box? How do you sustain this?
Yeah, well, 2 points on this. First, the current polling shows this is already the most unpopular major piece of legislation in my lifetime. It is truly extraordinary just how horrifically bad these numbers are when it comes to how voters feel today about this piece of legislation. You asked, though, okay, what about the next year and 3 months, 4 months? How do Democrats sustain that? I would point out to exactly 8 years ago, Republicans spent most of 2017 trying and ultimately failing to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And yet, the following year, the fact that the ACA actually wasn't repealed, that didn't end up saving them the subsequent November, when they lost a total of 41 House seats and lost control of the House of Representatives. I do believe, and I'm pretty confident making this prediction right now, pass will be prologue. There are many of my House Republican colleagues right now who are just about to guarantee they're going to lose their elections next November because of this vote they're about to cast.
We just saw Congressman Mike Lawler strolling behind you, one of those in a swing district who's about to take a vote himself. Ranking member of the House Budget Committee, Democratic Congressman Brendan Boyle of Pennsylvania. We'll let you get back into the chamber. Appreciate you taking some time with us this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.